to see you all. Thank you for tuning into another drum lesson. So today we're learning a triplet groove. I guess it's a groove that I've titled Twister, and you'll see why I've titled it that. It is very twisty and weird, very unorthodox measure of music for sure. And I gotta be honest, probably not the most useful lesson on this website, but not everything has to be useful. Some stuff is just fun. This definitely goes into that category. So what we're playing here is basically a hybrid, sort of modified, weird, rudiment-ish shuffle. When we have displaced backbeats, we've got odd patterns happening. So we have a good amount of stuff to cover, but the good news is, before we even hop in, I want to show you that you can draw a line down the center of this measure and see that we're only actually learning 2 beats of music, and we're doubling those 2 beats of music. So not quite as hard as you might have thought, maybe even half as easy if you thought we were learning this entire measure of 24 notes. It's really only a 12-note sequence that we're repeating 2 times in a row. So with that said, we'll leave it up on the screen, play it up to speed, and then we'll break this guy down. Here is Twister. Yeah, it's a weird one, I know. Now, one thing I wanted to mention before we really dive in is that you can play this as either a fill or a groove. I'm really not sure which to call it. To me, I feel it in my head as a groove, but it's so busy and so ridiculous that it can be played as a fill. So let me play it for you that way as well, just in case it helps you hear kind of what's going on here. So as a fill, we'd have this. Hell of a fill if that's the way you want to go, but it can be played that way as well. So totally up to you what you want to do with this. So let's start out in beat 1, where we basically have a paradiddle diddle as our pattern. Right, left, left, left. I gotta warn you, I don't think of this as a paradiddle diddle, even though that is technically what's happening. It's just one of those things when I read the notes, I go, oh, okay, I guess it is a paradiddle diddle, but that's not how I'm registering this in my mind. In my mind, this feels like a shuffle, right? It feels like we're playing 16th note triplet, Bernard Purdie halftime shuffle, this thing. The main difference there is the last note of the beat, where we're playing a left-hand diddle, right? We have left, left to end beat 1. In the classic shuffle, you wouldn't really do that. That would be another right hand that you put in there. So it's a slightly modified version of that, I guess. But in my mind, it still feels kind of like a shuffle. We're just ending that beat of sextuplets with the left-hand diddle on the snare. It's the only real difference there. And I guess technically, if we want to zoom all the way out, it's a paradiddle diddle. That's what we're using. So that's not terribly difficult, and you can see that that is beat 1 and beat 3. They match, right? Same exact thing happening. So the real challenge, I think, is the displaced backbeat that we're pulling off inside of beats 2 and 4. So what we're doing here is basically playing a left-hand lead paradiddle, left, right, left, left. That's happening inside of beats 2 and 4, but it is surrounded completely by kick drums. So that's how we're getting our 6-note pattern. It is a kick drum, left, right, left, left, that's our paradiddle, and then another kick drum after that. And what this does is it allows us to displace the backbeat. So that normal snare hit that would be on the downbeat of 2 or the downbeat of 4, it is now 1 16th note triplet forward in time because we put this kick drum in front of the paradiddle pattern. And this is probably the hardest thing to get used to here. As we crank that speed, the snare drum is just ever so slightly off the mark. And it's not off enough that it would sound like funk or something you would recognize, right? Sometimes in funk music, when we move the backbeat, we move it to a nearby 16th note. And our ears, especially if you've been playing drums for a couple years, that becomes very easy to hear. If you don't play the backbeats on 2 and 4 and you move them to like the E's, that doesn't sound that crazy. But when we move a backbeat, a snare drum, just ever so slightly, like 1/16th note triplet off of where it's supposed to be, it takes a lot of intention and a lot of mathematical purpose. You've really got to put that note in the exact right place, or else it just sounds wrong. And sometimes it even sounds wrong on purpose, right? Because it's just this very odd amount of time to move the snare drum off of where it normally lives. So that's what's happening inside of beats 2 and beats 4. Now, I think it's important that we should isolate those beats to just hear exactly what's happening here. But fair warning, it's not going to help you plug in this whole thing, because without hearing it in context against a metronome, connecting to the other patterns of the groove, it's just not going to sound that similar to what the actual groove or the actual fill sounds like. But it will help you sort of work out the mechanics of the pattern. So let's just isolate beats 2 and 4, the patterns that you can see there: kick, left, right, left, left. We'll just sort of play those patterns to get used to putting this left-hand lead paradiddle inside of the kick sandwich that is beats 2 and 4. Let's check it out. Now, fair warning here, your ability to play that pattern, if you could do what I just did and play the kick drum, left hand lead paradiddle with the loud left hand slid to the second note, you got a right hand on the closed hi-hat, left, left on the snare. Your ability to play that does not mean that you're going to be able to play the entire fill just yet, because again, it's that displacement, right? It's being able to hear that snare accent living on a different note than where it normally lives. That's really the challenge here. But it is helpful to work the pattern out. Just know that that is only part of the challenge. The other half is hearing it in the full context. Now, I also wanted to mention that if you're learning a fill like this, you should have a lot of comfort in 16th note triplets. You should have a lot of comfort in some versions of a shuffle and applying these paradiddle patterns with kick drums. If this stuff feels way, way, way over your head, like there's no way you could get this down, you probably shouldn't be working on something this complicated. Again, this is one of the weirdo lessons on the site that is not the most useful, just super, super fun, right? So what I want to do now for you is just play this thing really, really slow, because I think that's the most effective way that I can teach this material and really demonstrate it to you. We can zoom into the details of the math that's happening all day, but at the end of the day, you just have to hear this and internalize this very weird, very unique sound. And I think the way that I can be the most helpful as an educator is just slowing this down and allowing you to follow along with the notes as they pass. So that is what we are going to do. Now, I'm going to treat this as a fill for these next few examples, because I think keeping it in a groove context can make it easy to lose the downbeat of 1, where you're not sure exactly where we are within the groove. So I want to treat this as a fill for these last few tempos that we're going to play. I'm going to start out extremely slow. So we're going to go for like a 40, 50 BPM fill. Then we'll go a nice medium practice tempo. Then I'll correct this thing all the way up, because it does sound pretty dope when it's fast. So let's give it a shot, guys. Here we go.